Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui au quartier général du Parti républicain pour le comté de Columbiana. Mon invité est David Johnson, qui est le chef du Parti républicain pour le comté de Columbiana. C'est également un proche de J.D. Vance, le colistier de Donald Trump. Donc on a tout un tas de questions à lui poser. Without further ado, hello Mr. Johnson. Thank you for receiving us in your headquarters. So, as I said in French just before, you know J.D. Vance personally. He might become Vice President of the United States should Donald Trump be re-elected. What is his upbringing and how would that affect the Vice President that he might become?
Well, we know J.D. Vance because he is from Ohio, and he has a very interesting life story. Grew up in the state of Ohio in a very poor family, a broken family. His mother had a drug addiction problem, and he was actually raised by his grandmother. So he came from the humblest of beginnings and went on from there to make something of himself. Graduated near the top of his class at Yale Law School. He married his wife, who was also a graduate of Yale, and she was a clerk on the U.S. Supreme Court for Justice Scalia. So she's quite an accomplished person herself. He went on from being a very highly educated graduate of Yale to being an entrepreneur working on Wall Street as an equity investment operative, and made a lot of money, and wrote a book about his life. And that book was called Hillbilly Elegy, and it became a bestseller in the New York Times best-selling books in America.
It's also a movie on Netflix, I believe.
Also a movie came from that as well. And his name started to get out throughout Ohio. He has visited this very headquarters and sat in the chair that you're seated in before, and ran very successfully for the United States Senate here in Ohio.
That was in 2022.
That's correct. And he defeated a former congressman by the name of Tim Ryan. And Tim was a congressman just in the district north of us in Youngstown, Ohio. And J.D. did such a good job in his campaign that he defeated Tim Ryan in his own precinct, in his own neighborhood. And, of course, then he got the eye of the Trumps. And I happened to be a delegate for Donald Trump at the Republican National Convention. And I had the pleasure of standing right beside J.D. when they announced that he would be the running mate of Donald Trump running as Vice President of the United States. So it's been kind of fun to watch him rise up through the ranks in such a fast way, and to have such a wonderful story that appeals to working men and women and working families all around America. They admire somebody who came from nothing and made something of himself.
How do you think that would affect him as a vice president? For example, what would be the difference between him and Mike Pence?
Well, Mike Pence was a political guy. He spent his whole life in politics, and he started out in the state legislature in Indiana, and rose up through the ranks, and was quite an accomplished guy as well. But he accomplished his fame in government. What people are looking for today is someone from outside of government to come in and solve the problems that we have in America that are mostly created by people in government. We want people from the private sector to get into public office, especially all the way up to the office of president and vice president. And that's something that J.D. Vance can do.
Politically, does he completely align with Donald Trump, or do they have differences, and how would that affect their relationship if they come to power?
Well, I think there may be some differences, but I think the core values that they share and the core beliefs in having a strong free enterprise system of economics in America, in having America become energy independent again, which we were under Donald Trump's time, in closing the borders, for example, You know, that's one of the major issues in this election. The millions and millions of illegal migrants that are pouring across the border into America and then going out to sanctuary cities all across the country, and at a huge cost to Americans and a huge cost even in the drug trafficking that they're bringing with them. We have a record high level of fentanyl overdoses, for example, where as many as 70, 80,000 of our young people a year are dying of fentanyl that's coming over the Mexican border, and from there, before that, coming from China, where most of this fentanyl is made. And so I think on these key issues, J.D. Vance is a conservative, and he's a fiscal conservative, he's socially conservative, and he's running against, you know, Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate from Minnesota, and of course Kamala Harris, are not only liberal, they are so far to the left. Kamala Harris is the most liberal member of the United States Senate as a senator. Okay. More liberal than Bernie Sanders, who's the self-avowed socialist in America. So really what we all look at in this election is a stark difference between a free enterprise capitalist society represented by Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, as opposed to a absolute command and control socialist economy, which is what Kamala Harris would like to take America to.
So we are in Ohio. I'm guessing in the 50 states, people, they don't necessarily expect the same things from the election. Even Republicans from Texas, they don't necessarily expect the same things as Republicans from Ohio. Right. What are the big things here that people expect from this election?
Well, Ohio is often they've said as a bellwether state. In other words, as Ohio goes, so goes the nation. We have in this state a population of around 11 or 12 million people. We have major cities like Cleveland, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Toledo, Dayton, major urban areas like that. And then we have lots of small counties like ours. There are 88 counties in the state of Ohio, and there's like 7 or 8 of them are big counties, and the rest of the 80 counties in Ohio are little counties like this one. Okay. We have a population here in this county of about 100,000, and it's farmers and small business people, people that own a company that maybe employ 20 or 30 people or maybe 100 people, considered to be small business type of environment. And these areas are much more conservative, much more Republican. And in fact, the whole state of Ohio has become so Republican that we now control every office in state government, from the governor to the attorney general to the state auditor, the state treasurer, the secretary of state. We control supermajorities in the Ohio House of Representatives and the Ohio Senate, and we control the Ohio Supreme Court. So we are much more conservative and much more likely to win for Trump by a higher margin than, say, even Texas is.
Okay, but then what are the priorities of the people here?
I think the priorities are what I talked about before, about the economy, number one. People are very concerned about inflation. We've seen 40-year high inflation in America and, of course, here in Ohio. So people's grocery costs are up. Their utility costs to heat their home are up. The gasoline that they go to put into their cars, those prices are up 20, 30%. So I'd say that what we call the kitchen table issues are what concerns Ohio most. Secondly, I think on almost every poll that you'll see in America, probably the second biggest concern is the open border, where I mentioned before, the upwards of 15 to 20 million illegal immigrants pouring into this country, and you're not allowed to hire them. I have a factory. I could hire 30 more people right now. I'm not permitted to hire the people that came across the border illegally. It's a major problem. They're bringing drugs with them, they're bringing crime with them, and they're bringing dependency. And for example, there's a town in Ohio called Springfield, Ohio. It's a population of around 50 to 60,000 people down in central Ohio. They've had an influx of 20, let me think of the number. It was 20,000 Haitians have been brought into their community. And some of them are good workers. And again, I don't think Ohio, or just take me as an example, I'm not against immigration. We want legal immigration. People that want to come to America to participate in our economy and be a part of the American dream. All of our families at one point or another came from someplace. My family came here. My great-great-grandfather came to America as an indentured servant at the age of 12 years old. Okay. He had to work his way to become a citizen in America and work his way even to be able to come to America. And so all of us here in America at one point or another came from immigrants, but we want legal immigration. We don't want 10 or 15 or 20,000 illegal aliens to be dropped on our doorsteps and basically given free health care, free housing, free everything. Yeah. And then the Democrats say, let's go ahead and let them vote. So they can't speak English, they can't read or write, but let's give them the right to vote. So they want more things for free, they'll vote for the Democrats. That's what their plan has been all along. And I think the average Ohioan, and I think you're going to see in the election that takes place in America, I'm predicting that the American people are going to say enough of that. They're against it. Kamala Harris has done nothing but promote it. And Donald Trump and the Republicans have done nothing but try to stop it.
Now, Ohio is traditionally considered as a swing state, but in the 2016 election and again in 2020, the state voted for Donald Trump. The polls are saying it will go for Trump again, so now it can be considered as a red state. Can you explain that shift?
Well, as I indicated to you, the shift in Ohio politics has been changing over the last, say, the last 10 years. Really, since Trump became president, this state got increasingly more conservative and more Republican. And I can use this county as an example. I went back and I looked at every election in this little county, population of 100,000 people. I went all the way back to Ronald Reagan, which was the first election I voted in 1980. And we were like a 51-49, 50-50 county, leaning Republican, but when Donald Trump ran in 2016, we went from a 50-50 county. The first year he ran, he won 68% of the vote in this county. Okay. And with him came other Republicans down the line got elected. The last election cycle in 2020, he went from 68% to 72%. 72% of the people in this county voted for him.
Do more this time.
Yeah. And in addition to that, every Republican that ran in the county, that ran with him, won elected office. Okay. So this little county that when I first became chairman 35 years ago, we had 3 Republicans elected in this county. Today, 100% Republican. Okay. We have every office in the county government is Republican. And this is happening all over the state of Ohio. So we quit becoming a swing county that could go, you know, one time we voted for Barack Obama, the next time we voted for Donald Trump. It's gone back and forth. Now, the Democrat doesn't stand a chance here. Not in this county and not in this state. And the polling shows that Trump will probably carry Ohio by as many. The last 2 times he carried it by 8 points. They're thinking this time it could be 10 to 12 points.
Okay, that's quite a lot. We talked about immigration a bit earlier. In France, there's a lot of talks about immigration as well. Actually, the vast majority of French people are now for the idea of changing the rules of immigration. In France, however, the situation is a bit different. There's also a cultural undertone to the immigration discussion. Is it also the same in the US, or is it just about the fact that these people come illegally and sometimes some of them bring drugs and crime? Or is it also a cultural aspect to it?
I don't think it's cultural. I do believe that the American people are a very giving people. We are a Judeo-Christian society, and we look towards people that are underprivileged in a way that is positive. We want to help them. We want to give them a hand up, not a kick in the boot. And I think if there was an orderly immigration system, and if it was thoughtful and people came to America that wanted to learn our language and learn to be a part of American society, that we would welcome them. And we need them. We need more bodies to help with our economy. There are a lot of jobs in America that frankly, immigrants, when they come in, they're willing to do jobs that maybe some Americans aren't willing to do. And that's how you work your way up. You sort of, quote unquote, pay your dues. Yeah. So I don't think it's cultural. I don't think we're not against immigrants to be against immigrants. We're just against the gangs that have been coming in here. You know, Venezuela and some of these countries have opened up their prisons and their insane asylums. And they have exported some of the worst people. We have statistics about how many criminals, thousands of criminals that came from jails that have been unleashed into our economy and into our communities. Some of the highest costs of a little county like this, the highest cost we have in our county government is the sheriff's department and the county jails. And the biggest problem relating to all crime.
So that wasn't the case before Biden was...
Well, it's gotten worse and worse over time.
Okay.
Biden has been soft on criminals. Kamala Harris has been notoriously soft. They want to defund the police.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, we had cities that were burning down, and Kamala Harris was out raising money to bail these people out of jail after they were lighting whole cities on fire. Did billions of dollars of damage.
I remember that.
So there's a difference. The Republicans don't tolerate that.
What is your biggest fear if she's elected?
My biggest fear if she's elected is that she would take America so far to the left that we wouldn't recognize this country. She wants to eliminate the filibuster. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, but can you explain it to the French
Filibuster is a debate mechanism in the Senate only that requires you to have, instead of just a simple majority, 51 to 49%, to pass a bill or to approve the confirmation of, say, a justice on the Supreme Court. In the Senate, there's a provision that enables you to debate this matter indefinitely until at least 60% of the body would agree. And so when you have a divided government, it's hard to get to that 60%. But the Democrats want to do away with that so they can just have a simple majority to pass potentially very controversial legislation, such as they'd like to make Washington, D.C. a state. They want to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico both a state, so that would give them, there's 2 senators per every state. That would give them 4 more senators. And it would give them probably another 10 to 20 or 10 to 15 more congressmen. And coming from those areas that are traditionally Democrat, it would assure them greater control of the Congress.
So would you say it's like a federal form of gerrymandering?
Exactly. That's exactly what it would be.
I see.
They want to eliminate the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is the system by which there's a representation from every state in the country that has some voice in how we elect our national office, the office of president. They would like to have one man, one vote. So you'd have like New York City and Los Angeles and Chicago and the biggest cities in America overwhelm all the other regions that are around them, and basically would, you would ensure only Democrats would win. So they would like to eliminate the Electoral College, which has been a part of our electoral process in this country for 200 years. They would like to legalize all illegal aliens, illegal migrants, should we say. Yeah. They'd like to do that overnight. So they would lock down control of the Democrat power base in this country forever, and then turn us into a socialist economy.
I see.
Their idea of, Kamala Harris's idea of correcting inflation is to start investigating companies and saying that they are price gouging rather than increasing their prices because their costs have gone up. Yeah. If you run a business like I do, all your costs are up. The cost of labor, the cost of energy, all the costs of materials, all of those costs go up. So as those costs go up, then I have to increase the price of my product. And so it's a vicious circle.
I see. Now, I have one final question for you.
Yes.
If Mr. Trump is re-elected, what would be his relationship to France?
I think his relationship to France and to all of our allies would be amazingly good. He wants a strong NATO. Now, he may be a little bit tough on the NATO commitment to defend themselves. They have an agreement among the NATO alliance that each country is supposed to commit a percentage of their gross national product to their defense. And not all countries have done that. And when Trump was president before, he put pressure on them to do that. And so some of them maybe didn't like it, but I think some of them respected him for it. Because there are challenges in Europe. You look at what's going on with the war in Ukraine. And it's more of a threat to Europe than it is us. But yet we are spending the lion's share of the money trying to defeat and push back Putin. So I think the relationship would be good with France and with all of our allies in Europe. I truly believe that.
Well, Mr. Johnson, thank you for receiving us today. If you have any final word for the French people, now is the time.
Well, I would say that America has had a wonderful relationship with France going all the way back to the American Revolution. You came to our aid when our enemy was Great Britain. And we have been with you in World War I and World War II. The wonderful Statue of Liberty, which is the very symbol of American liberty and freedom, was a gift from France to the United States. So I'd say we have a long and cherished history with France. And to the extent that we can make America strong and make America great will be to the benefit of our allies and of freedom-loving peoples all over the world. And that's what I would say this election is all about. And God hope that Donald Trump prevails.
Mr. Johnson, thank you.
Okay.
And that's a wrap.
Very good, very good.
Nous avons du coup interviewé Monsieur David Johnson. Si cette vidéo vous plaît, n'hésitez pas à la commenter, à l'aimer et à la partager. Et nous, on se retrouve très vite.